Podcasting from Singapore and broadcasting all around the world. You're listening to the Ignite EdTech Podcast with Craig Kemp, created by an educator, for educators, and streaming to the world. Now, over to your host, Craig Kemp.
Hello and welcome to episode 119 of the Ignite EdTech Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Kemp, and I'm honoured to have you join us. I continue to work with the incredibly talented Mark Quinn to improve the final audio quality of this podcast. He has his own podcast production studio that provides editing and mastering services to content creators. To connect with Mark, please see the details in the podcast notes below. A tool that has positively impacted the authentic and purposeful use of technology into classrooms and meeting rooms that I have worked in is Rollama. Rollama is an EdTech platform built and designed to support learners with their English punctuation and spelling via games with avatars, leaderboards, trophies, and more. Students have individual accounts for independent practice and customization. Teachers get comprehensive oversight, task allocation, and searchable results. Subscription packages cost no more than £1.50 per teacher per month, so it's reasonably priced. It was a new tool for me to explore, and I was impressed with how much value there is for the price. I asked the founder Andrew for a chat, which you're going to hear later on in this episode. I explored further and deeper and was increasingly impressed. I see this having huge value for parents and for schools to use as a value-added service that could potentially be funded by parents. I highly recommend that you take a look at the link in the description below, rollama.site. Last week, I shared my thoughts about March Media Mentor Month. If you're interested in learning more, go back and listen to last week's episode. This week, I wanted to chat about the process of turning an idea into a business or solution, as it's something I regularly get asked about. Almost 4 years ago, I stepped out of the school and started my own consultancy, Ignite EdTech. By design, it was created to support schools, educators, parents, and EdTech companies to thrive in an uncertain world with the authentic and purposeful use of technology in K-12 classrooms globally. While I still do a lot of this today, and do a lot of support for EdTech companies in helping them land and expand in Asia, I'm also a startup founder of eduspark, as many of my long-time listeners know. The journey to get here is an interesting one, and we'll dive into this more over the coming weeks. But for today, I wanted to give you an overview of my journey before diving deep next week, so stay tuned and subscribe. My journey started, like most, with problems. Many problems. And as teachers, we have these all the time. Just like you, every day, I was faced with challenges and problems. Some were easy to solve, others were not. Often technology played a huge role, and sometimes it didn't. For the most part, ideas came in and nothing came out of it. But the beauty of having an entrepreneurial mindset meant that I was always looking at problems and thinking of unique ways to solve them. eduspark was born out of my frustration, but also an opportunity which we won't go into today. We'll continue on this theme over the coming weeks. Businesses should start out of a passion and be driven by the opportunity to solve a problem. In education, we're bombarded with problems and little time to solve them. Unfortunately, we're also bombarded with businesses and EdTech solutions that are created by non-educators who think they have the right to solve these problems. 9 times out of 10, these companies haven't chatted to teachers and educators, and that's part of my mission in my work with EdTech companies globally. How can we help them better understand education, connect to our mindset, and really solve the problems that we need solved? Imagine if you took 10 minutes each day to stop, think, brainstorm, and iterate ideas to solve even your most simple problems. To me, that's how ideas are born, and that's how businesses are born. Take time, identify problems and frustrations, and brainstorm crazy ways to solve them. Eventually, something will stick. Personally, I use a Google Doc, and I have 22 pages currently of ideas. 99% of these are rubbish, and probably will go nowhere. but there are a couple of gems in there that I hold on to for a rainy day. For me, it takes time. Time to think of the ideas, time to jot them down, time to brainstorm, time dedicated to idea generation and sharing. And to me, that's where entrepreneurial thinking starts for a busy teacher or school leader. We all have ideas, big or small, that can make even the simplest solution better, but we just don't have the time to jump on them. That's where I want to go, and I want to do more, and I want to help you do more. Next week, I'm going to dive deep into this a little further and give you tips and ideas on how to get started. Stay tuned for more. I'd love to hear how you think about entrepreneurism and how this could help you come up with the idea of a lifetime. Let's collaborate. To learn more, please connect and follow on your social channel of choice, and don't hesitate to reach out with your thoughts and ideas. Every week, I bring you a short interview with some of my edu heroes, an engaging learning experience with someone who makes a difference in education every day, with a particular focus or angle towards educational technology. This week, I had the pleasure of chatting with Andrew Lowery. Let's have a listen to the chat. Today, I have the honor of speaking with Andrew Lowery. Andrew is the co-founder of Rollama, a gamification platform for mini games to support students in their learning with spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Andrew is an experienced educator and was a primary assistant head teacher and English teacher for 15 years in the UK, China, and Malaysia. Andrew, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Are you ready to talk about education and technology integration?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, Craig.
Absolute pleasure. Let's go. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your current role and what inspires you to do what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a co-founder at Rollama, as you said, and my role nowadays is running a business by myself, which is quite a change from my career, having been in the classroom for 15 years. We decided to build a product for children to practice their English grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Some experiences in international schools, especially in Shanghai. I was finding an issue with children practicing their grammar, and we decided that we would build something for ourselves to solve that problem. So nowadays, my work life has changed from being in front of children to sat at home on my laptop building this product.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear, very similar journey to what I've gone on as well. And it's exciting to hear a little bit about what you're doing now. I'd love to dive a little bit deeper. And if you could tell us a little bit about your educational journey, Andrew, what got you interested in education, and tell us a little bit about your experience as an English teacher and assistant head.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my career has kind of been in three parts. So I'm the son of two primary school teachers. My mum and dad both taught primary school in Nottingham for 25, 30 years. And so it was always kind of a possibility growing up that I might end up in working in schools. I fought against that for a while. I tried training in professional writing before eventually deciding to see what it was like to be a teacher, and really enjoyed the energy of being in the classroom, found it really rewarding. Ended up teaching secondary English for 4 years in the UK. And then fancied a change of scenery. I wanted to see the world a bit, so made a switch to go international and taught in Malaysia for 5 years, and subsequently in Shanghai for 6 years, where I was teaching year 6. Yeah, a bit of a kind of career change there in terms of the content that I was teaching. And really enjoyed the international school scene. Also became assistant head primary during that time, and had various different responsibilities around curriculum and pastoral and assessment at different times. Each year it would seem to change. And yeah, so having taught for 15 years, it was certainly being a middle leader is one of the toughest things, I think, in a school. You're balancing the demands of the classroom, which is obviously a full-time job in itself. And then you're also leading a team and trying to think about the big picture. So yeah, middle leadership was my life for about 10 years. And I kind of was faced with the choice of, do I look for promotion? Do I become a deputy head or kind of look towards those roles? And I decided at this point in my life, I wanted to try something different. And I always kind of had in the back of my mind the challenge of running a business. What would it be like? And kind of had that at the back of my mind and was looking for the right opportunity. Yeah, it was during the pandemic, really. I was kind of thinking about online learning and the idea came up really during that time about gamification of English. Decided to kind of go all in. So decided to see out my last contract and then go full time on this business and see if we can make it a success.
That's awesome. It's such a cool journey and one that not a lot of people actually jump into and take. It's challenging, it's scary, it's daunting, it's risky, but I've been there and done that and doing it right now, same as you, and the reward far outweighs the scary factor, I guess, and it's really exciting to hear.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk, and there's certainly no guarantee that it'll succeed. But it felt like the right time. My wife's been really supportive, so she's kept her teaching job. So we've got that as a kind of safety net, and then going to dedicate a couple of years to see if we can make this into a sustainable business.
Yeah, it's brilliant, Andrew, and I love the sound of what's happening. Let's dive into Rollama a little bit. What led you to start it, and I guess why?
Yeah, good question. So in Shanghai, the international school I was working in, I was there for 6 years, and over the time I was there, the school gradually became less and less international, and by 2020, the majority of children were Mandarin speakers. So in China, Chinese nationals are not allowed to go to international schools, but there's ways around that with various loopholes. And so the effect of that was that Mandarin was becoming the language that children used on the playground and in the corridors, even though it was an English language school. And it kind of was presenting a problem in terms of raising the children's English proficiency. And a lot of these children were from families with parents that don't speak English. And so it was sort of a challenge to address that as a target. And it wasn't enough that, there was children that would spend 8-9 years in the school and still not have the level of fluency that you would expect. And so the problem that I found as a teacher was that there wasn't really anything I could give the children to go home and practice in a fun way. And so I ended up building a small tool that we would use in class for kind of starters, because we wanted to bring more grammar into the curriculum. And grammar is a particularly tricky thing to teach. English grammar can be very complicated and quite dry, quite boring at times. Of course, it helps to link it to good quality texts and reading books. But sometimes it's necessary to follow up and to dig deeper and to rehearse it more regularly. And there wasn't really anything out there that was like a fun, quick tool that I could use in class and to give the children at home. So I ended up building this small thing in Excel. I don't have a coding background, but know how to build Excel formulas, and made this little thing. After a few weeks using it, my wife had a look at it, and we ended up deciding, let's flesh it out with some artwork and build it out in terms of the different styles of games that we could play on it. My wife is an artist, and she does a lot of artwork for the site. So we're kind of working on it together, and this was all in the background kind of as a side project while we were still both teaching in Shanghai. And eventually decided, well, if we're going to put this much time into it, what would it require for a teacher to want to subscribe to it? And we decided, well, it needs to be online. It needs to be independent accounts, so the children can log on, they can play the games independently, and the teacher can track their progress. And that led to about 18 months of web development, which was all like first time in that world. I'd never even seen a line of HTML before I started this project. And then all of a sudden I was managing several developers building this the code of the site with the basic intention that kids can practice basic English grammar in a fun way. And this was while I was still in the year 6 classroom, and we were getting lots of good feedback from the kids there. Kids, they love to pick faults with things. They love to spot the bugs. So my class were using the site and pointing things out and helping me improve it during that time. And then eventually it grew to a size now where we've got about 300 pages of games. We've got 15 different game types. Yeah, we've got hundreds of teachers subscribing and trialing it out in schools across the world. The strange thing is that I didn't expect it. It's most popular in the UK. So UK primary schools have really picked it up as a preparation for SATs. It's been really popular there. And that age range, kind of 7 to 11, has been a really popular target market for us. So, we're now in this growth stage where we're just trying to get the word out, really. So it's kind of spreading word of mouth from teacher to teacher. And so we're about 6 months into it now.
I love it, Andrew. It's such an exciting journey, and I could listen to that sort of story all day, because at the end of the day, it's about making an impact, and that's exactly what you're doing in the lives of these kids and families and teachers that you're supporting. And at these early stages, we need people like you growing and developing these. And most importantly, we need people following and subscribing and joining people like you to help you on this journey. Let's jump into some quick fire questions. The first thing that comes to your head may be a brief why. What's your favorite EdTech book or resource?
Yeah, I think Twitter is the best resource for EdTech news, ideas, tools. Most of the leading figures in education are there. Obviously, I'm coming at it from the teaching point of view, coming from education, but there's all of the leading figures are there and very accessible. So yeah, I would say Twitter before books in the EdTech space for me.
Brilliant. And what's your go-to EdTech tool or tools that the listeners need to try?
Well, besides Rollama, I would say Quizizz is my favorite tool for in-class quizzing. It's like, I think Kahoot's probably more well-known, but Quizizz, that's quiz with IZZ on the end. I think it's designed more thoughtfully for learning. And second one, I would say Flipgrid, if that's a Microsoft product, which is kind of like a school-safe friendly version of like video editing, a bit like TikTok, and where the kids can make little videos with filters and things relating to your classroom content.
And what's one daily habit or practice that helps you enjoy, progress, and succeed in your career, Andrew?
Well, I think there's, two parts. So like a task organizer, I find really useful. So there's one called Asana that I use, which is a free tool for like organizing projects and keeping track of like a to-do list. But then in terms of like bigger picture, I think one thing that I try to do regularly is try and do something that scares you, like push you out of your comfort zone. And keep learning. Like you said, it's a big risk starting a new business like this, and I just kind of jumped into it. It was a bit scary. It still is a bit scary. No real guarantee of success, but it's like do something that scares you, and you're guaranteed you'll learn something along the way.
Yeah, great call out. And for anyone listening, some of the best advice you can have. We expect our kids to take risks and try new things in their learning, but as educators, we very rarely do it ourselves. And one of the things I really want to do in the coming years is create a fund where we support teachers on their journey, just like you have been, to support their ideas and growth stage of development while they can continue to stay in the classroom and do what they love, but create ideas and get it out there for the rest of the world to see and use. Andrew, today's been awesome, and I know that the listeners are going to want to follow and connect for more. What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so rollama.com, ROLLAMA.com is our website. There's free games there, and then you can find out more information. Our landing page is rollama.site. I'm on Twitter, Andrew D. Lowery, and you can catch us on all the socials.
We'll make sure all of the links that we've talked about today are in the podcast notes below. Andrew, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Craig. Really appreciate it.
Next week, join me for episode 120 of the Ignite EdTech Podcast, when I'm joined by Sia Raj Purohit. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow us and share the podcast with your PLN and colleagues. Please remember to spend a few minutes to rate this podcast too on your podcast channel of choice, so we can reach even more educators and EdTech enthusiasts globally. Remember, you have the chance to win as well. Check out the links in the description for more, and I'll see you again next week.
If you liked today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And be in the drawing to win prizes every week. If you know others that would enjoy the show, please hit that share button and brighten their day. Join us again next week for your weekly EdTech hit with @Mr. Kemp NZ. We'll see you again soon.